Not every NBA player gets a fairy tale ending. From Kobe finishing his final game to a standing ovation, to Dante West who became homeless after his final game. Here are 5 NBA players whose final game determined their legacy for better or for worse, starting with Dirk Nowitzki. He had already done more than enough to secure his legacy by 2019. As a 14-time NBA All-Star, former MVP, and NBA champion, Dirk was one of the most respected players in NBA history, not just for scoring a total of 31,560 points and being the 6th best scoring marksman in league history, but for his loyalty to the Dallas Mavericks, who had been his only home in the NBA for over 20 years. But heading into his 21st and final season, nobody knew when he would actually call it quits. That was until the Dallas Mavericks played against the Phoenix Suns on April 9th, 2019. Rumors had been swirling all throughout the past few days that this is likely Dirk Nowitzki's last game in Dallas. Then he went out and did what legends do. In just 32 minutes on the court, he dropped a whopping 30 points, which included some of his vintage fadeaways and signature deep jumpers, with the crowd erupting into cheers every time the ball left his hands.
If I was Dirk, I'd shoot every time. Shoot it, man.
It's a 3, and it's in there, just like Skid said.
And when it was over, he grabbed the mic, choked back tears, and officially announced his retirement to the fans who had been with him since day one.
As you guys might expect, this was my last home game. I put you guys on a hell of a ride with a lot of ups and downs, and you guys always stuck with me and supported me, so I appreciate it.
The next night, he played his actual final game on the road in San Antonio, scoring another 20 points in a tearful exit, with his final point being a 19-foot fadeaway.
Those that weren't already on their feet, they see Dirk up top, and Dirk over Eubanks, got it to go from the top of the key. 46.8 seconds left. The last shot made by Dirk, and he will come off the floor for the final time.
But for the fans, that Suns game was the real ending. It wasn't just a great performance, it was the perfect closing chapter to one of the NBA's most humble and loyal careers. Dirk didn't leave the game chasing rings or begging for minutes on a contender. He stayed with one franchise for 21 years, passed up super teams, and delivered Dallas their only championship. He left the court as beloved as ever, with 0 scandals, 0 drama, and 0 questions about his legacy. Unlike Dante West, whose career and life spiraled so quickly that no one saw it coming. Dante West was never considered a superstar in the NBA, but for a while, he was the most reliable role player in the league. A tough defense-first guard who could hit shots, run the offense as a two-way player, and hold his own on a playoff team. He was the 24th pick in the 2004 draft, playing alongside LeBron in Cleveland as the starting point guard, making game-winning shots
Working on him. To the left. To the corner, Dante West to 3.
and earning millions, before being traded to Boston, then Seattle, and then finally Dallas. However, he made sure to make his mark in every team that he played, scoring an average of 9.7 points per game, with a field goal percentage of 44.6. That is, until 2011, when his career took a sudden turn. By then, he'd already been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and had several run-ins with the law, including one infamous arrest in 2009 where he was caught riding a motorcycle with 3 loaded guns, including a shotgun stuffed in a guitar case. And while he was still holding his own on the court, teams started to view him as unpredictable and unstable. He started snapping at the referees and even his own teammates. Then, in October of 2012, when he played in a preseason matchup against the Houston Rockets, Dante's mental state reached a boiling point. After losing to the Rockets 123-104, Dante went crazy in the locker room, causing him to be suspended by his own team. This turned out to be his final game, one that mirrored his last season as a whole. He got 15 minutes on the court, scored only 2 points, which resulted in him getting kicked out of the organization entirely. No formal retirement, no farewell tour, just gone. Unfortunately for Dante, this was only the beginning of his downfall. As his life kept getting worse year after year, he was spotted acting erratically in public, begging for $1 on the streets.
My dog, Dante. How you doing, my brother?
Oh, you ain't got $3?
Man.
And eventually confirmed to be homeless.
Why'd you hit him? Did he attack you first with the self-defense, or did you hit him?
Man, I walked down the street. The man approached me with a gun.
Bridget, where's his gun at?
I don't give a fuck.
Okay. Do you know where his gun is?
I don't give a fuck. Okay. Young champ. I'm the leader of the motherfucker. Goddamn Navy SEALs.
Fans who remembered him as LeBron's teammates were now seeing him in a completely unrecognizable state, wandering DC in a hospital gown or begging for change at gas stations. The NBA community was stunned. Eventually, Mark Cuban personally stepped in, found Delonte at a gas station, helped pay for his rehab, and tried to get him back on his feet.
You know, he's making progress, sending pictures. Dante's emailing me, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're getting this. Then Dante throws his shit over the fence, disappears. We bring him back again, making progress. This is it. Same shit. Only so much you can do, right? Because I thought we had him. I thought we had him turned around.
But Delonte rejected that as well, and for most NBA fans, that was the last straw. Yep, the man who couldn't find a way to make a generational amount of wealth last long enough to secure his future is the victim. Doctors can't treat addiction unless the patient is willing. His final game wasn't just a disaster on the court, it was his last shot at being accepted, before everything fell apart. Today, his legacy isn't defined by clutch shots or career highlights, but by the way he exited the league and how his story unraveled afterward. Unlike Shaq, whose final game may have been just as unremarkable, but it capped off a legendary career that cemented his legacy as one of the best NBA players ever. There's no denying that by the end of his career, Shaquille O'Neal had already done everything. He was a 4-time NBA champion, 15-time All-Star, 3 times Finals MVP, and was one of the most dominant forces the league had ever seen. So dominant, in fact, he shattered multiple backboards during his career, forcing the NBA to Shaq-proof their hoops. He single-handedly bullied entire franchises, making him one of the greatest players to ever play the sport. But by 2011, it was clear Shaq's body had given up. And yet, he wasn't ready to say goodbye. Instead of retiring with the Lakers or Heat, 2 teams where he had actually made history, he signed with the Boston Celtics, hoping for one last run at a title. Unfortunately, he couldn't escape the reality of his aging body. Injuries kept him off the floor for most of the season. He averaged just 9 points a game, the lowest of his career, and could barely move on the court. Still, somehow Boston pushed into the playoffs in 2011, carrying Shaq to what looked like his 5th NBA title. And in the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Miami Heat, they brought him back for Game 4 on May 9th, 2011, not knowing that this would be Shaq's final game in the league. However, it lasted just 4 minutes. He checked in, limped down the court once or twice, and was subbed out with a strained calf. He never came back in and never played again. No farewell tour, no signature moment, just a shell of the most dominating big man in NBA history, hobbling off the court in a green jersey that he never should have worn in the first place. This game also forced Shaq to admit he was done. I'm going to miss the competition. I'm going to miss, the chase for the ring. I'm actually going to miss everything. And in a press conference on June 3rd, 2011, he officially announced his retirement.
After 19 years, I'm announcing my retirement from professional basketball. So in light of today, I am retiring all my nicknames. The Big Aristotle, Shaq Fu, the Big Shamrock, the Big Cactus, the Diesel, and finally, the one and only original, never to be duplicated or replicated, Superman.
And even though Shaq's overall legacy is untouchable, there's no denying that Shaq's final game felt more like a whimper than a bang. He could have walked off the court after Miami, he could have gone out as a champion, but instead he stayed too long. And when you look back at how legends like Dirk and Wade said goodbye, Shaq's exit just doesn't hit the same. But at least he didn't end his career in disgrace, which is exactly what happened to Gilbert Arenas, whose time in the NBA is still remembered for the gun incident and not his accomplishments as a player. In the mid-2000s, Gilbert Arenas was that guy, dropping 60 on Kobe, draining buzzer beaters, and being arguably the best shooting guard in the league for 2 years straight, averaging 20.7 points per game with 35% from the three-point line. From 2005 to 2007, he averaged nearly 29 points per game and made the All-Star team 3 times in a row. But then, everything collapsed in an instant. It started with him tearing his meniscus back in 2007, but instead of taking the time to fully recover, he came back too early and injured it again. And just when fans thought things couldn't get worse, they did. In December 2009, Arenas got into a locker room standoff with teammate Javaris Crittenton, where both of them threatened to shoot each other with guns, saying, "I'm going to shoot your ass with one of these," as he pulled out his own gun already loaded. Gilbert was suspended indefinitely, pled guilty to felony gun charges, and went from one of the most important players of his franchise to league embarrassment overnight. By the time he returned, there was no room left for him in the league. So on April 26, 2012, in a first-round playoff game for the Memphis Grizzlies, Gilbert Arenas played his final NBA minutes. He logged 5 minutes off the bench, scored 0 points, and never played in the league again. No one even noticed. No highlight reel, no farewell post, just a quiet exit from a league he used to light up. Looking back, his legacy was already damaged before that game. The gun incident, the suspensions, the jokes about his bloated contract, like him saying he earned every dollar of the $111 million to sit around for 5 years. All of it turned him into the perfect example of what happens when you let success get to your head. But that final game where he barely touched the floor and vanished without a trace, it didn't just mark the end of his career, it solidified his fall from grace. But if there was ever a career completely opposite to Gilbert's, it would have to be Kobe's, who lived by his Black Mamba mentality, right till the end. Kobe Bryant was never the type to go out quietly. For 20 seasons, he was the face of the Lakers. A relentless competitor who played through injuries, carried his team on his back, and dropped 81 points in a single game just because he could.
And an 81-point game.
He was the closest thing the NBA had ever seen to Michael Jordan, a 5-time NBA champion, 18-time All-Star, and 4-time All-Star MVP. But by 2016, after 2 decades of chasing greatness, his body was done. He tore his Achilles in 2013, fractured his knee the next year, and tore his rotator cuff soon after that. And yet, fans still packed every arena just to get a glimpse of his greatness. Still, no one could imagine what would happen next. Kobe had already announced that he will retire at the end of the 2015 to 2016 season, and the day had finally arrived. April 13th, 2016, the Lakers' final game of the season against the Utah Jazz. It was supposed to be a meaningless regular season game until it wasn't. As the game started, the signs didn't look good for Kobe. He looked tired, his legs were gone, and his shot wasn't connecting. However, he didn't stop shooting. After all, it was his mentality. The Black Mamba mentality that had allowed him to reach the heights he had reached. But then, out of nowhere, he started heating up. He hit a deep 3, then a fadeaway, then another. By the end of the game, Kobe had dropped another 60-point bag to cap off a legendary career,
60.
forcing even his opponents to praise him.
He wants it so bad and he's willing to go to the extreme, guarding the point guards at the age of 34, playing 38 minutes, 40 minutes. That's ludicrous. I think this is what he's battling with. It is what it is. He's cursed as much as I am.
And when all was said and done, Kobe picked up the mic and gave his iconic retirement speech.
I can't believe how fast 20 years went by. I mean, this is crazy. To be standing here at center court with you guys, my teammates behind me, and appreciating all this, the journey that we've been on. We've been through our ups and been through our downs. And I think the most important part is that we all stayed together throughout.
Ending it with a line that would go viral overnight.
What can I say? Mamba out.
And just like that, the man who built his entire career on outworking everyone walked away on his own terms. Even now, almost everyone who watches the sport will agree that he walked into retirement with the greatest final NBA game in history. Tragically, just 4 years later, Kobe would lose his life in a helicopter crash that stunned the world, which only made that final night seem even more surreal, like the perfect ending to a story we didn't know was about to close forever.